ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go over your review. We're looking at number 1, y equals x squared plus 2x plus 8. And we had to do what for this? Completing the square. Okay, so what is the very first thing we do? Yes, Jasmine?
Minus 8.
We minus 8. We set it equal to 0 and we can minus 8 all at the same time. That's totally fine. Okay, and we can do that right away because there's no number in front of where? X squared. No number in front of x squared. So now what do? I make a, okay, so I make my box. I know x squared goes right here, so that's x and x. I take half of the b, so that's 1. If 1x and 1x, what goes in my missing box? 1. So I'm going to add 1 to both sides. So I get negative 7 equals, but instead of x squared plus 2x plus 1, I'm going to put the factored form. So I put, very nice. And what is the next step? Square root. Good, you guys are good. Square root of negative 7 equals x plus 1. Subtract 1. So negative 1 plus or minus, I'm here plus or minus, good. Negative 7 equals x. Unless you're answering a question, and it's fine if you guys are just yelling out right now, please don't talk. Every single person in the room needs to be writing this down. Okay. How many roots does this have? No real roots. Good. I would like you to put that down as well.
How do you know?
How do we know, guys? Negative under the square root sign. If there's a negative under the square root sign, no real roots. Negative 1 plus or minus the square root of negative 7, which is how we know there are no real roots. Okay. So, number 2, let's make sure we have the right answer for number 2 before we do number 3, is negative 6.5 plus or minus the square root of 37.25. Okay, let's take a vote. Who would like me to go over number 2 before I move on? 2 people? Okay. Let's try to do it really fast. Y equals x squared plus 13x plus 5. So let's set it equal to 0, subtract 5 from both sides. Just a reminder, ladies and gentlemen, since I'm going over these problems, you can earn half credit for it. All right, so what's half of 13? 6.5. That's why that one's difficult, because it's not even. So this is where I might want a calculator. What's 6.5 times 6.5?
42.25.
Very nice. So I add 42.25 to each side.
And then you get 37.25.
I get 37.25 on one side equals
X plus 6.5.
squared.
Oh, yeah, square.
Then we
6.5.
square root both sides, yep. So we get the square root of 37.25 equals x plus 6.5, and then we just subtract. Do I have any questions?
No.
Especially for people who ask me to go over that, no questions? Okay, remember, everybody should have this written down so they can study tonight then. Number 3, if you looked at my answer key yesterday, there was a mistake, so let's make sure we go over to number 3. Everybody got this? Need another second? All right, let's move on. All right, number 3. Y equals 3x squared plus 6x plus 9. Uh-oh, what's my problem? We got that 3 in front. So we have 0 equals 3. We pull out a 3 and we get x squared plus 2x plus 3. That has to be our first step. And then I'm going to divide everything by 3. What is 0 divided by 3? 0. So we have taken care of it. You can do that anytime you have a number that you pull out. You can divide at both sides. 0 divided by anything is always 0. So it takes care of that number.
What? I'll make the box.
Okay. Then we're going to subtract 3 from both sides. What's half of 2? Good. So we know with our box, we've got x squared. We've got 1. We know 1 times 1 is 1, so we add 1 to both sides. We get negative 2 equals x plus 1 squared. And then how do we get rid of the squared? We take the square root. So we have the square root of negative 2 equals x plus 1. Subtract 1 from both sides. How many roots do we have? We have no real roots. And when you take Algebra 2, you'll learn to make it imaginary. Okay, before I move away from completing the square, do we have any more questions on completing the square? Everybody feels pretty comfortable? If you have a number in front, you divide it all out and divide it by 0 and it goes away? Okay, let's start with some quadratic formula. All right, number 4. We had 2 parts. We had to find the discriminant and the number of solutions. And then we had to actually find the roots. Okay, who remembers how to find the discriminant? Anybody?
Isn't that b squared minus 4ac?
B squared minus 4ac. It's inside the quadratic formula, yes? So I get negative 4 squared minus 4 times negative 1 times 7. And I end up getting 72. So it's a positive number, so how many solutions do I have? 2 solutions. Well, if you find your discriminant first, it makes life a lot easier for your quadratic formula. Because we know the quadratic formula is negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a.
Yeah.
4 times 4 is 16, right?
Yeah.
Negative 4 times 2 is 8. What's 8 times 7 is 56. 16 plus 56 is 72.
I did 16 minus.
Remember, 4 times 2 becomes a positive. A negative times a negative becomes a positive. Okay, so we're going to go negative b, so that becomes a positive 4, right? Because a negative times a negative gives us a positive. What do I put under that square root sign? What's my shortcut? Have I already found b squared minus 4ac? Yeah, so I can just stick 72 under here, right? All over 2 times negative 2. Do you guys see that shortcut? If you find the discriminant first, you can just plug that in under the square root sign. Makes your life easier. Okay, so we get 4 plus or minus the square root of 72 over negative 4.
How do you know how many solutions?
If it's positive, it's 2 solutions. 0 is 1 solution, and negative is no solutions. Okay. So, and then I take the square root of 72, and I get 4 plus 8.49 over negative 4, and 4 minus 8.49 over negative 4. When you plug it in the calculator, put these in parentheses, divide by 4, and you get x equals negative 3.12. Make sure you put this in parentheses if you stick it in your calculator. X equals 1.12. Yes, ma'am.
So what's this one over here when it's over 2? When negative b plus or minus and the square root of b squared. And then underneath it is 2a. Can you use either 2 of them? I can't explain.
Okay, so do you see how I did b squared minus 4ac came up with 72? So I just stuck that under the square root sign. Because I solved b squared minus 4ac over here, so I just stuck it under the square root sign. I know 2 times a, 2 times negative 2 is negative 4. Okay, so they're all negative 4. Okay, and then I've got the square root of 72 is 8.49, 8.49. One's plus, one's minus. And it's got that.
What you did on the...
Okay. All right, ladies and gentlemen, are we ready for number 5? Okay, let's look at number 5. Y equals 2x squared plus 5x plus 7. Ladies and gentlemen, we shouldn't be talking right now. Shh. Okay, why don't we start with this? What is A? What's B? And what's C? Okay, so we're going to do the discriminant first, which is b squared minus 4ac. Okay, what's b? So we're going to go 5 squared minus 4 times 2 times 7. What's 5 times 5? Try it again. What's 5 times 5? 25. 4 times 2 is 8. 8 times 7 is 56. So we're going to get negative 31. How many solutions are we going to get? Try again. None. No real roots. Okay, so we're going to put this in here. We get negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. We're going to have to, Ashley, I'm recording this, so we're going to have to wait until I'm done to finish. Okay, so we get negative 5 plus or minus the square root. We know we can put negative 31 in there right now. Times 2 times 2. Well, can we stop right here? How many roots are we going to get? 0. We can kind of solve it more. We can go negative 5 plus or minus the square root of negative 31 over 4. But if you put the square root of negative 31 in your calculator, did you get an answer? No, it says error. So we can't do anything from that point on. So we can just say no real roots. Do we have any questions with number 5 before I move on to number 6? Okay. Do you need another second writing it down, or can I move on to number 6? Okay. Number 6. Y equals 3x squared plus 6x plus 3. What is my A value? 3. B value? C value. Good. So I'm going to do b squared minus 4ac to find my discriminant. 6 squared minus 4 times 3 times 3. I get 36 minus 12 times 3 is 36. 36 minus 36 gives me?
0.
So how many roots will I have? 1 root. Okay. So now I'm going to plug it into negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So that's negative 6 plus or minus the square root of 6 squared minus 4 times 3 times 3 all over 2 times 3. So we get negative 6 plus or minus, we can just replace this whole thing with 0, right? Because we already know what that is. What's the square root of 0? 0. So we get negative 6 over, what's 2 times 3? 6. So x equals
1.
negative 1. Any questions about number 6 before I move on? All right, we're going to look at number 7. And there are a couple of different ways to find number 7. Okay, number 7, we've got h equals negative 16t squared plus 224t plus 240. We know that we're supposing an object is launched 240 feet at an initial velocity of 224 feet per second. The equation to find the height at a given time is h equals negative 16t squared plus 224t plus 240. We want to know when the object hits the ground. What would the height be when the object hits the ground? Would it be, if it hits the ground, is it 500 feet in the air? It's 0. Okay. I am going to tell you this right now. There are 3 ways to solve this problem. You can do any way you want. You can factor. You can do complete the square.